Welcome back to another video for the Linux with SQL series. Right now, we're going to still remain on that Linux side more before we get into later videos in this series where we'll be implementing SQL with Linux. But for this video, I'll be examining input and output in the Linux shell. So previously, I went over how or in general, I went over how Bash Shell can help communicate with the computer's operating system. If not in this series, then prior videos that I have done around Linux or adjacent to the OS, I've mentioned as far as that Bash Shell. I do remember a cloud video that I did, particularly using Azure and going between Secure Shell and Bash Shell, and I believe I mentioned that. But nonetheless, it helps you communicate with the computer's OS. And now when you communicate with the shell, the commands in the shell can take input and return output or error messages, right? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the echo command, which I've, again, used in multiple videos, to examine how input is received and how output is actually returned in the shell. Then I'll actually use the expression command or EXPR to further explore input and output while performing some basic calculations in the shell. Now, what this does for, what this video does or this activity or this project or mini project, it's just going to build some foundations in the understanding of how to communicate with the Linux OS through the shell. Now, as a security analyst, right, I would need to input some, I'll need to do some input commands right into the shell and recognize what the shell returns, either output or an error message, right? So now let's get into the scenario, right? So again, as a security professional, it's understand too important the concept of communicating with the computer via the shell, right? Now, what I'll have to do is I'll have to input a specified string of text that I want the shell to return as the output. Pretty simple stuff for the most part. I'll also need to input a few mathematical calculations so the OS can actually return the result. So I'll do this in a number of ways. So let's go ahead and actually get started. So let's do really, again, simple stuff. So it's going to return the string hello, right? Because the echo hello is the input to the shell and the hello is the output from the shell as well. So if we rerun the command, right, hello, oh, not with hello, but echo, I'm sorry, with the quotations here, it'll return hello again, just as the same as before. Now, the quotation marks are optional in this case, but they tell the shell to group a series of characters together, which I'll actually go over in particular. That's sort of exercise around that in a later video. But this can be useful if you ever or if I ever need to pass a string that contains certain characters that might be otherwise misinterpreted by the command. So I'm going to use the echo command again. Use the quotes this time. And it's going to echo back name, right? So of course, whatever I entered in the string is going to return as the output, right? First it was hello, then it was name. Now what I'm going to do is generate output with the expression command or EXPR. So I'll do it to generate some like additional output in the bash shell. Now this command performs basic mathematical calculations and can be useful whenever I need to perform a calculation. Now, imagine that the system has shown myself that I have 32 alerts, right? It's quite a bit. Now, but only 8 requires action, right? I'll want to calculate how many alerts are false positives, of course, so that I can provide feedback to the team that configures the alerts. So to do this, I'll of course subtract the number of alerts that require action from the total number of alerts. Obviously, 32 minus 8, that's 24. You could do that math pretty simple, but for more complicated mathematical equations, you can obviously still use the same command, but I'll do it just for the sake of showcasing it, right? And it gives us our answer here, right? As far as our output. Now, let's say I need to calculate the average number of login attempts that are expected over the course of a year. Now, from the information that I would have, I would know that an average of 3,500 login attempts have been made each month so far this year. It's quite a bit depending on the enterprise, of course. So I should be able to calculate the total number of logins expected in a year by multiplying 3,500 by 12. So I would type the expression command 3500, and then of course a star for multiplication by 12 into our shell here. to my shell, and then it'll give me 42,000 as my output with the mathematical calculation. Simple enough, right? Now, third, what I'm going to do is clear the bash shell. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the clear command, right? Again, simple enough. You're just typing out clear, and it's going to clear out everything. As if you see my previous videos, I love a nice clean slate whenever I work with the Linux OS, and I have a lot of commands that I've been working on. There's a lot of things on the screen, especially if it's a lot of data information that I have to sift through. I like to clear it out and then get started with maybe a new command that I need to do as far as sifting in through more information. I just don't like my screen convoluted. That's just me. But this allows the cursor to stop at the top, to start at the top of the bash shell window. Now, whenever I work in a shell environment, right, the screen can fill with, again, like I mentioned, previous input and output data. It's kind of make it difficult to process when I'm working on. And clear the screen just allows just pretty much a clutter-free environment, so I can focus on what's important at that particular time. So I cleared out the bash shell. Now, I can also perform more calculations, which I messed around with before, which I've showcased as far as using the expression command, as far as, whatever mathematical calculations you want to apply to it that it'll do for adding, subtracting, dividing, multiplying, of course, simple stuff, right? But this is the end of the video, and I just want to do a brief recap of what we showcased, or what I showcased, practical showcasing in the Linux bash shell as far as the different commands, generating output with the echo, generating output with the expression, and also clearing the bash shell. Literally simple, easy things, but particularly more of a scope as far as what the average security analyst would be utilizing the Linux shell for, right? And understanding input and output is definitely, usually essential when communicating through the shell. And it's important that I or any security professional would be comfortable with these basic concepts before working on additional commands, which I'll expand on them in future videos as well, especially with the last Linux series that I did. Definitely did some deep diving in some different commands and different OSs with utilizing those. But nonetheless, see you in the next video. Until then, stay curious, stay secure.